Audio on mute. Okay. Ready? Good evening. I am Dorcia Simmons, Chief of Staff for Fulton County Board of Commissioners, Vice Chair Marvin Arrington Jr. Marvin Arrington Jr. represents Fulton County District 5, which encompasses the cities of Atlanta, East Point, South Fulton, College Park, and Union City. Tonight, during our winter district dialogues, we present to you Fulton County Government 2020 proposed budget. Without further ado, Vice Chair Arrington. You're muted.
All right, I'm still learning my Zoom etiquette. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marvin Arrington Jr., Vice Chair for Fulton. Very excited to be with you this evening. I want to make sure that we present and give you the opportunity as Fulton County residents to participate in your budget. This is your Fulton County budget. These are your Fulton County tax dollars. And so we want to make sure that we hear from you on how you would like your money spent and how you would like to prioritize how your Fulton County tax dollars are spent. So we've got our finance team here that will give us a breakdown. And then we'll also have our legislative team to talk about our legislative priorities for 2021. So we thank you all for joining us this evening. We hope that you will find this session very informative. We hope that you will ask questions and send us guidance. Let us know, again, how you would like your Fulton County tax dollars spent. Thank you. And I guess we've got James that's going to present for finance. So James, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good evening, everyone. My name is James Husserl. I am the budget manager for Fulton County, and I will be presenting to you today a few slides that outline the proposed budget that was presented to the Board of Commissioners on November 15th. So to start, I'm going to just hold with me a second. I'm going to share my screen. So you can actually go with me through the entire presentation. So this was the same presentation that was presented to the board back on November 15th. And in a nutshell, it outlines the entirety of the different fundings that have been allocated to the different organizations within the Fulton County budget. And then it goes a little bit more into detail of each of the different allocations and why, and the rationale behind why funding was allocated to those different places. As we move towards the end of the presentation, you will find an outline that shows the schedule, which includes the process from beginning to end. So let's move forward to the first portion of the presentation. And what you have in front of you represents the overall proposed budget for 2021, and it is compared to the 2020 and 2019 adopted budget. It outlines all of the different funds we have internally, including our main fund, what we call the general fund, which is the biggest and the brain of the entire operation at Fulton County. That is the line that you see at the top on the general fund. And as you can see here, the number we're talking about for 2021, it's $785 million. As you go across all the way down, you will find all of the different funds we have, which includes a water fund and our airport fund and our 911 service. All of this information you can find in our website, which includes additional detailed information for each of our allocations. But moving to the next stage, we were focused specifically on the general fund. As I mentioned earlier, this represents the brain, the heart of Fulton County. And the way that the budget was built this year was based on identifying what are our core services and the resources that are needed to be able to provide those services. Through a thorough analysis that began back in September, all the way to early November, we were able to identify that our core services cost around $708 million. And taking in consideration our current situation, and what I mean by that is the current health emergency associated with the COVID-19 virus, we are taking in consideration for 2021 a reserve of around $42 million. This reserve will be used to be able to deploy many of the different emergency services we have deployed this year. This will include testing, this will include vaccination, as well as the purchase of PPE, cleaning, and being able to provide to all of the workforce in Fulton County with a virtual environment. Some of the other investments we will be doing in 2021 include the ability to be able to provide different departments with their vacancies. As part of the 2020 budget, due to the uncertainty, both economically and on the health side, the county made a decision to take a conservative approach to expenses, and some of the vacancies in the county were restricted. So for the 2021 budget, for the time being, those vacancies are being brought back so that departments can use it. This includes the sheriff's office, to the district attorney, and the public defender. We're also adding $6.5 million to the budget in 2021, and this is exclusively associated with our January election. As you know, there is a Senate runoff election, which we're going to find all of the eyes of the world in Georgia looking at us, and the county has allocated $6.5 million at this point towards that effort. We're also making a restructure of our payment and compensation schedules. This is associated with a plan approved by the Board of Commissioners back in 2019. In 2020 was not implemented due to the virus. Currently, the plan is to hopefully implement it in 2021. But again, this will be dependent on how the situation develops as we move into half of 2021. We're also allocating around $3.8 million for the reopening of the courts. As you can imagine, due to the COVID-19 emergency, lots of the services provided by our courts could not be implemented in the same way they were done in the past. And that has created some backlogs and delays. So thinking forward and understanding that there are some pressures in the justice system at this point, the county will be allocating, as part of the proposed budget, $3.8 million towards this effort. Additionally, we will find small allocations of funding across all of the different departments. This will be made to address different needs. This will include behavioral health services. We will also include funding for the food contract that we have at the jail, in making sure that the food deserts that we have in Fulton County are addressed. We're allocating funding for that as well. And we're also supplementing the budget for the medical examiner, who at this stage, as you can imagine, has been with its hands full. The following slide will provide you with a 10,000 feet overview of how our budget was created. As you remember at the beginning of the presentation, and I mentioned to you that we have a base budget of around $708 million. And all of those different squares that you see are additions to the budget. All of those squares combined total the amount of our general fund budget at $785 million. So you can see it includes the emergency response, additional vacancies, elections funding, the additional funding to clear the backlog, and the additional allocations we're making as part of the proposal. And as we move through the process, again, this is a lengthy process that really begins in January of every year, but the lion's share of the effort actually begins around September. From that point on, departments start the submission of the budget request. We have a comprehensive assessment of those requests as we move into the month of October. Then during the month of October, there is a lot of back and forth between departments, the leadership team in terms of each of the different needs at that point in time. In this case, understanding what are some of the pressures associated with the COVID-19 emergency as well. And once all of these things are thoroughly discussed, we begin the development of the proposed budget and drafting the actual proposed budget itself. By November 15, we submitted the budget to the Board of Commissioners, and on November 18, this budget was presented to the board. Last week, we have the mandatory budget hearing that took place virtually as well during one of the BOC meetings. And as we move towards the end of the year, there will be another opportunity for the discussion of the budget, and the final budget will be approved as we step into the 2021 year. That budget can be approved on the 6th of January or on the 20th of January. It depends on the BOC, the Board of Commissioners, making final decisions, changes, and final determinations on how they will fund the budget for the following year. This is, for now, the end of my presentation. And of course, we have time for questions if you have any.
All right, thank you, James, for that presentation on the budget. Again, this is your Fulton County budget. We want to make sure to present that to you. And up next, we have Fran Calhoun, who's going to talk about our legislative agenda for 2021. Fran, are you there? There she is.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chair, and I am here, and so is my director, Jessica Corbett. And so I will be here with Jessica. Jessica will take the lead this evening on the presentation, sir.
Jessica, I didn't know you were going to be joining us. Thanks. We're glad to have you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you, Fran. Whoops, excuse me. I shared the wrong screen. Hold on. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all tonight. Let me get the right one up here. And if I mess something up, I'll ask Fran to help me out and get us back on track. But we are preparing, of course, for the 2021 legislative session. As everyone will recall, last year's session was really unprecedented. After crossover day, the General Assembly took a break. It was right around the time that quarantines and close downs were beginning to occur, and they came back for an abbreviated session after early over the summer to really focus on the budget. So many of the county's legislative priorities will be continuing from last year's session to the next session. This is really focused on our state legislative agenda. Fulton County also works very closely with the National Association of Counties on the federal level. And there's a lot of federal legislation that's happening right now of relevance. So we'd be glad to come back and talk about that another time. COVID response is, I think, still on everyone's mind. And I would say that generally speaking, we expect the 2021 session to focus very strongly on the same two issues that have been a priority for Fulton County all year. One of those is COVID response, and the second of those is elections. So looking ahead, we are monitoring resources from both the state and the federal governments around resources for COVID response. That's both on the public health side, where we've used resources this year to really focus on testing, as well as resources for vaccination. We also have, we've received funding this year to allow us to do other elements of response. So for example, Vice Chairman Arrington was very passionate about ensuring that we supported the arts in small businesses. So that was a really important part of our response. So we're monitoring, we're looking at resources to bring back to our communities. We're also interested in looking at how state government continues to provide rules to local governments. So for example, the courts have continued to delay jury trials because of the ongoing pandemic. Case numbers are continuing to rise. There have also been rules about open meetings and things of that nature. So there's a lot of work at the state level that affects how we operate as a county government. Our position is just to continue to advocate for resources. We want to bring every dollar we can back to Fulton County to allow us to serve our residents who have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. Like I said, elections are the other big issue that we have worked very, very hard on this year. It's no secret that the June election did not go as it probably should have. And we worked very hard to kind of restore confidence for voters going into November. Everyone has seen the news and seen that there's still a lot of contention about the November election. There have been hearings from both the Senate and tomorrow from the House that have made a lot of claims about the election process, and we expect this to be a major issue in the 2021 session. Fulton County has some specific legislative requests. One of those is around access, and Fulton County generally has one of the strongest early voting programs, really the strongest early voting program in the state. We have worked very hard to provide early voting at kind of any facility that would bring voting to the public. So State Farm Arena had nearly 40,000 voters in November. The Georgia International Convention Center, both of these are going to be coming back for the January 5th runoff. But we also want to emphasize that there are other locations that could be ideal early voting locations, but are not publicly owned. And that is one of the barriers to providing early voting access. Another is the vote center concept. And essentially, just like during early voting, you can go to any location in the county where you're registered. On election day, we would like to be able to offer that same convenience so that any voting location that's open on election day would be open to Fulton County voters. We have also seen this year a tremendous increase in the number of absentee ballot requests. Currently, if you requested an absentee ballot, you can't simply turn that in at the polls on election day. You have to file an affidavit, surrender it, and then start the voting process all over again with an electronic ballot. And this creates a lot of paperwork, it creates a lot of confusion, and it's frankly inconvenient to the voters. So we would support allowing voters to simply go to their polling place and turn in their absentee ballot and have it counted just as if it were in a drop box or submitted by the mail. There's a lot more about elections. One of those is the deadline for requesting an absentee ballot. The deadline for requesting an absentee ballot is always the Friday before an election. And that frankly is unrealistic for workers to be able to turn those requests around and get the ballot out to the voter in time. The Postal Service, we have no control over the Postal Service, and we do not have a full confidence that they would be able to return those ballots in time. So that's why we would advocate for a more realistic deadline for a request of absentee ballots. This is another one where Commissioner Arrington had a great suggestion about expanding the authorization for absentee ballot drop boxes. Currently, only city and county governments can have an absentee ballot drop box. And if anyone on the call has used one of the drop boxes, it's really the safest and most convenient way to make sure your ballot gets returned on time. Commissioner Arrington had a great suggestion that we should also allow those to be included at locations that are private higher education institutions. We have a number of colleges and universities in Fulton County, and the AU Center schools are, of course, private education institutions, and therefore they nor state-owned universities would currently be allowed to host those. We also, our board has also made a request to allow residents to have same-day voter registration. It would simply be verified on the back end to make sure that voter is eligible, but they would be able to vote on election day with same-day voter registration. So that was something that our board was very supportive of. And again, that is another way of expanding voter access. The Fulton County Airport, which is located on Fulton Industrial Boulevard, remains the only unincorporated portion of Fulton County, the Fulton Industrial District. And Fulton County has put a lot of resources into economic development opportunities at the airport. We have a wonderful relationship with our tenants. It's a job center. It's a wonderful asset for our county. And we would like to ensure that it remains an unincorporated area in perpetuity so that the county can continue to do the work that we've begun and continue to provide those jobs and other opportunities that are already underway. The other one is about transit, and transit is, although it doesn't seem like it these days with so many people working from home, it continues to be a major issue for our region because one day people are going to go back to work in the traditional setting, and Atlanta, of course, has some of the worst traffic in the nation. So one of the things that many people have heard about is the creation of the ATL board a few years ago. And this was intended to be kind of a macro transit agency that would provide some governance over all of the smaller transit agencies. Of course, MARTA is no small transit agency, and Fulton County has supported it for 50 years. But there are smaller agencies around the state. So the ATL board was really intended for the metro area, but has some governance overall with transit issues as a regional transit agency. We also want to ensure that the state continues to provide transit dollars. Historically, they have put their dollars into roads and not into transit. And so Fulton County would advocate that those dollars be made available for transit and that we have representation on the ATL board as they make important decisions about our transit agencies. Behavioral health is a really important service that's offered by Fulton County. For those who are not aware, Fulton County offers free and sliding scale behavioral health services for children and adults. We are currently offering that via telemedicine during the middle of the pandemic, and as well as in-person visits for those who need it. We have also had a partnership with the city of Atlanta and the Georgia Department of Developmental Disabilities and Behavioral Health to look at funding for long-term permanent supportive housing. This is really a wraparound service delivery model for chronically homeless individuals who are really not able to live independently without a permanent supportive housing model. And Fulton County has received direct funding from the state to provide case management services for these clients. The housing itself is provided through the city of Atlanta and some private fundraising that they have provided. But we are asking for the state, as those housing units continue to grow, we are asking that the state continue to provide resources to us. In addition, we overall believe that greater resources are needed for addiction prevention, treatment, and recovery. Opioid addiction has been in the news a lot, but we have also seen during the pandemic greater dependency on other substances, including alcohol. So that's another place where we believe additional state resources are needed. As anyone who's followed criminal justice reform issues is aware, there is a high kind of co-occurrence of addiction issues, behavioral health issues, and unfortunately involvement in criminal justice systems. So this has is not only about the health of the individual, but it's also about kind of their overall outcomes and services that are required to support them. We also believe that Fulton County is best positioned to be the safety net provider for behavioral health services for uninsured and underinsured residents. Currently, the state of Georgia funds a number of smaller behavioral health nonprofits and agencies, and we believe that Fulton County would be best positioned to coordinate that care and would like to continue working with the state to achieve that. Justice system, I just mentioned that a few minutes ago. The justice system constitutes as one of the most important constitutional services we provide as a county government. It's also very resource intensive. And about a third of the county budget goes to the justice system as a whole, probably a little bit more than that. And so we're very interested in ensuring that there is an efficient system for operating the courts and the related agencies. One of the issues is we've all experienced judicial proceedings via video conferencing. Some proceedings, like first appearance hearings, have occurred via video conferencing for quite some time, but we would recommend that they expand that availability to some other types of hearings. We have also advocated for resources on gang prevention training and intervention. This is something that our justice partners have told us continues to be a challenge that they face, and they believe that GBI funding would be helpful in mitigating that. We also, Fulton County has really prioritized reports about, unfortunately, this kind of activity. And we believe that additional state funding is needed to address those issues, both on the criminal side as well as supportive services for the victims. This is kind of a inside baseball a bit, but those of you who are familiar with the work of the child attorney's offices, they were created out of the Kinney A litigation a number of years ago. And the purpose of the child attorney's office is to represent the child as their client in abuse and neglect cases, not the parent, not the state, but they are there to represent the child. And they are seeking expansion of their authorization to proceed in legitimation and termination cases, independency cases specifically. There are some other ones here. As I mentioned, there's this very strong link between behavioral health and the justice system. The lack of beds at the Georgia Regional Hospital for long-term behavioral health treatment absolutely has an impact on the operation of the Fulton County Jail, and inmates who need those services, unfortunately, are detained in a jail instead of being in a hospital where they can receive care at times. In addition to that, diversion programs such as DUI court, drug court, mental health court, we have all of those programs, but they could serve more people. There are more clients who could take advantage of them if the funding were available. And that's another place where we're seeking additional state funding. In addition to that, we would seek authorization to divert some of those detainees prior to indictment, which is more along the lines of pretrial diversion programs. In addition to that, when people are returning to the community from incarceration, many of you or many of us may have experienced this. There is very little to support that individual as they return. So in terms of employment, addiction treatment, healthcare, housing, case management, those services are simply not there. And while Fulton County, the state of Georgia and Fulton County have both been leaders in justice reform in the past, this is one of the areas where there's still a lot of need. Property assessments, switching gears quite a bit here. Property assessments are one of the areas that we have focused a lot in the last several years. One of the things that we have seen in recent years, and some folks on this call may be familiar with this, is that there has been a disparity in the valuation percentage of the digest between commercial and residential. And the impact of that is that residential properties, by some would say, are paying more than their fair share compared to commercial properties. And so one of the things that analysis has shown, and there have been a couple of different audits that looked at this, is that commercial property owners tend to be very successful during their appeals process. We believe there are some things that could change in the law that would level the playing field. We did have legislation introduced last year, and we're very excited about that. It did not make it through committee, but we are going to work again on this issue in the upcoming session. I'm going to go through a couple of these and then I'll wrap up. Thank you for your patience. This is another one where Commissioner Arrington has really taken a leadership position, and this is about transparency and best practices and protection for property owners in community associations, so condo association, HOAs, these kinds of organizations. There's not a lot of legal oversight for how they are to operate, and that can create risk for the property owners. It also can lead to just nightmare legal situations, and so additional protections there could be very beneficial. Housing affordability is an issue in our county and in our as well as homelessness services. Homestead exemptions, I mentioned earlier that property assessments are a continuing issue. Homestead exemptions, if you've ever looked at our homestead exemption guide, which we're, by the way, updating for 2021 right now, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of them on the books, and we believe there's a way to simplify that. Last but not least, creative industries. This is an important area. There are a number of tax incentives that support creative industries. And we have seen the impact of that in terms of job creation. There are a number of things. Film and TV, of course, are the most well-known, but Fulton County also has a strong music economy. Fashion, post-production, and esports is another one that's continuing to grow. So we support that job creation. We've seen that Fulton County is a major player in these areas, and we believe that this is providing job opportunities in our county. Really quickly, Fulton County has a very large legislative delegation, 36 total members, 11 in the Senate and 25 in the state. So we have a couple of new members this term. Senator Halpern was just elected during the runoff on December 1st. Also, Senator Al is also joining us. And then we also have several new members on the House side. Deborah Silcox is not coming back, and instead we will have Representative Shay Roberts in District 52. We also have several other new members, Representative Maynor, Representative Evans, and Representative Thomas. That is it. I will stop sharing the screen and we can take any questions. And Fran, please let me know if there was anything I didn't get quite right.
No, I would only add that the upcoming legislative session begins January the 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and Fran. That is a very great job, very comprehensive update on our legislative agenda for 2021 for Fulton County. So we thank you again for providing that. If there are any questions, you can submit them via chat or via Q&A, and we'll be happy to entertain those. If not, we'll wrap this up by letting everyone know that our annual Dads, Daughters, and Dolls drive is underway. We certainly want to invite you to give toys to children and teens of inmates of the Fulton County Jail. Just because their parents may have been arrested does not mean that those children a great Christmas. So we try to do all that we can. We're happy to partner again this year with the Sheriff's Office for this endeavor. And we invite you to join us and be a part of this great experience. So thank you very much. And again, remind anyone or remind everyone to please remember social distancing. Please wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart. May God bless you all. Thank you.
Vice Chair, let's see if Daryl Carver received any emails.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have one question from Donna Renfro Lawson. Library budget is my concern. According to recent Library Board of Trustees and/or Executive Director Gail Hunter Holloman's statements, there are some money management and misunderstandings presented that could be more properly addressed. For example, a possible and more accurate time frame to return to full services that affect staffing and constituents. She also adds the public impact has been challenging. A better understanding of how library employees are classified when their transferable skills are utilized for areas such as elections. That's the first of the comments we've gotten in thus far.
Well, we'll certainly take that into consideration. As you mentioned, Ms. Lawson, Renfro Lawson, the libraries run by a board of trustees. They make those decisions. We do allocate funds to them, but we certainly will take that your comment into consideration. Any more comments, chat, questions?
And also, Vice Chair, we will forward on, if anyone sends an email to our Fulton Communications inbox, which is fulton.communication@fultoncountyga.gov, that has additional questions, we will make sure that you and your office gets a hold of those.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, James. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Dorsha. Thank you, Daryl. Thanks to all the Fulton County staff responsible for helping put this together. Again, we look forward to seeing you at our next Fulton County Board of Commissioners meeting. Thank you.
Tomorrow, Vice Chair will be at Barack and Michelle Obama Elementary and Hilliard, Asa Hilliard Elementary as well, giving away STEAM books and
500 face masks for each school. So we just gave out 500 face masks at Pickett and also at Stonewall Tell Elementary. So we're trying to work our way around the district to make sure that our children and our teachers and our school staff are all safe.
that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Dorsha. Thanks again, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you.